Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Stuart Close Philosophy, and we have started discussing about the homeopathic posology. We have finished three lectures on this chapter, and it is a big chapter where he has tried to explain the concepts of posology in detailed manner, making it clear exactly what is meant by posology, then how one should go ahead when things are dynamic, and what are the things which are there in the material science. And differentiating both of them, he tries to make it clear to the common man as well as to the homeopath that how exactly one must think and how one should come out about the material mind. So this concept he tried to explain over there by explaining specifically the physiological doses, then the therapeutic doses, then the pathogenetic doses, and how they gets differentiated and what is the role of all those doses one must consider. And then in the concluding part where he tried to explain that how homeopathic dose is so minute dose and so minute quantity affects the human being and why it affects, that also he was explaining. There are certain people who never agrees with it, and Hahnemann himself tried his level best to explain the concept of homeopathy, homeopathic infinitesimal dose, but many times there are many people who never believes on it. Then because they are materialistic minded, and that's why their question always arises like this. That page number 189 he explains over there. How so? The smallest possible portion of the substance, is it not an integral part of the whole? Were it to be divided and redivided even to the limits of infinity, would there not still remain something substantial, a part of the whole, let it be ever so minute? What man in his senses would deny it? So he is explaining, Hahnemann is explaining that if you make it small and small and small and you reach to an infinite so small quantity, but still it is a part of the whole. If it is a part of the whole, it carries the same properties as the whole substance is having. And that's why when you reach to the even the smallest particle like an atom of the specific entity, it carries the same properties which that substance has. And if this be in reality an integral part of the divided substance, which no man in his senses can doubt, why should this minute portion, as it is certainly something, be inactive while the whole acted with the so much violence? And then he puts one question. If the whole acts in a violent manner, why not this small particle? It will also act. It never becomes inactive when you make it fine. It is, in fact, you are making it more and more fine, it becomes more and more active. It becomes more and more penetrating. And that's why this was a Hahnemannian concept and understanding regarding the physical science as well as chemical science, and with which he was explaining the things so clearly that as you go on making it fine, it becomes more and more active. Hahnemann's final views and practice in regard to dose were arrived at gradually through long years of careful experiment and observation. At first, even for some time after the promulgation of the law of similars and the method of practice based upon it, he used medicines in material doses and in the usual form. His discovery of the principle of potentiation came about gradually as he experimented in the reduction of his doses in order to arrive at a point where severe aggravations would not occur. Gradually, by experience, he learned that latent powers of the drugs were released or developed by trituration, dilution, and succussion. Thus, he arrived at his final conclusion that the proper dose is always the least possible dose which will effect a cure. So it is not a day, within a day he arrived at the potentiation. It is not within a day he come to the conclusion of trituration and succussion. In fact, these are the things which he developed as a part and parcel of his experiments. He started doing experiments, started reducing the doses. If he was giving the 4 ounces, he started giving 1 ounce, 2 ounces. Then he has reduced it up, 1 ounce, half ounce. Gradually, he was coming to the conclusion. And at the end, when he was reaching to the very fine particle, then he started thinking that what is beyond that. Then he has added the physics over there. Then he has added the chemistry over there, and then he started doing it in a mathematical process which is called to be a mathematico-chemical process, or where the physiology, the pathology is considered with the help of mathematics, and it has made more scientific. So it is a long tedious process with, or a journey with which he arrived to the concept of potentiation, and which he has explained it in a very thorough manner. And then he explained, thus he arrived at his final conclusions that the proper dose is always the least possible dose which will effect a cure. And that is the law of minimum dose. It is the most, it is the most minute dose, minimum dose, just sufficient to arouse the deranged vital force. It is the so minute dose which is necessary in order to bring back cure. That is what is called as law of minimum dose. It is the result of his experimentation with which he has arrived at that specific point. And this is this point one must know. Having now a general view of principles underlying the question of a dose and general standard by which to test the results, it is desirable to try to formulate some rules based upon experience to govern us in the selection of proper dose for particular case. So, if he has developed that method, then he has considered there must be certain rules which one has to know while selecting the potency. And what are they? Hereafter, he started explaining about them. The question seems more complex now than it was in Hahnemann's day, but really it is not so. The same principle applies now as then. For the greater part of his life, Hahnemann had only what we now call the lower potency, namely from the first to 30th. Although in his latter years he was enabled to produce and use some of higher potency. Bonning-Hussein wrote that Hahnemann had repeatedly stated to him that he generally used the 60th dilution and that he often used much higher ones with the greater satisfaction. Bonning-Hussein also states that Hahnemann, in correspondences with him, was much interested in experiments of Bonning-Hussein and Gross with the high potencies and heartily approved the same. It was repeatedly stated that Hahnemann would deal with this subject in the forthcoming sixth edition of Organon, and a work which unfortunately never saw the light until 1922. So Hahnemann, in his early practice, when he started doing potentiation of the medicines, the succussion and trituration, earlier he reached to the 30th and he was using 30th for longer time of duration. But thereafter also he started using the 60th also, and sometimes even more than that. It was a era of experimentation. He was doing the experiments and finding the results with it. He was finding, yes, this is how it is working. Going up and up, it is working. So increasing the potency, increasing the energy, at the same time reducing the contents of it, he was developing his own method. And this is the way with which he came out with the potentiation and started explaining, yes, this is how it works. So here Close explains the Bonning-Hussein's expression regarding the concept of Hahnemann's concept of understanding the potency. And then further he adds on page number 190, since Hahnemann's day, the potency markers have been busy, and now we now have potencies ranging up to the millionth centesimal and even higher. Men with confidence Men with the confidence, courage, and zeal to experiment with these altitudinous preparations and publish their results have not been lacking. Physicians of unquestioned honesty, ability, and experience have testified that they obtain curative results from the use even of very high potency. It is not just for us to question this testimony until we have put the matter to test. It is in the light of experience and of recent revelations in other departments of science of power of infinitesimal. There is nothing inherently improbable about it, and it is unquestionably to our advantage to have as large as armamentarium as possible. So here he tries to explain that there are peoples who, after the Hahnemann, who tried to utilize more higher potencies. Kent was the first important person who started using higher potencies. So he has reached up to the CM and he has tried, made his experiment, and he was satisfied with that. Even in while explaining the nodes in the tuberculinum, he said that if you know that patient's miasm is tubercular, then you must start with low and end with the CM also. So 30, 200, 1M, 2 and 10M, 50M, CM, so that patient will be recovered completely throughout in from his miasm. So Kent has also worked out with these and they have satisfied with the higher potency. So it is not a question of just a scientificity, it is a question of experimentation, and many peoples have made such types of experimentation, and then question arises, how many potencies does we have or does we keep in our clinic? The simple answer is that right whole range of the potencies, right from the 3C, 6C to the CM potency, at least you must have in your armamentarium. Armamentarium means your showcase where you put your medicine. The great bulk of the work of the profession, however, is done with the lower and medium potencies, and these, if accurately prescribed and wisely managed, will give satisfactory results in the great majority of cases. The third, the sixth, the 12th, the 30th, with the set of 200 to top of with gives a general working range. When the young practitioner can afford to add to these a set of boric and tappel sand made 500 and 1000, he will be well equipped indeed. The rest is velvet. But if anybody should and offer him a set of Finke's, Swans, and Skinner's 50,000s and 100,000s, he should not let his modesty nor his prejudices prevent him from accepting and trying them. Hundreds of practitioners, including the writer, have used them with great satisfaction. And this is what Close says. He says that many people who are satisfied with 3200, but there were many who have tried more than that, who have tried with 1M, who have tried with 10M, 50M, CM. And those potencies work. Even he says he himself has used many times the CM potency, 50M potency, because he was damn sure that it is the potency which will work instantaneously. If you'd have read the classical talks on homeopathy by George Vitulgas, in the volume number 1, the first case he has explained about the phosphorus. And if you go through it, he has very clearly made the concept regarding it. That was a case of a very specific case of the not it was a fever which was not recovering, and he was called over there in that hospital, and he looked toward the child, he observed or he made his observation, and he came very close directly to the potency to the remedy phosphorus, and the mother of the child asked, doctor, when my child will going to get recovered? He asked whether you want it today or tomorrow. If you want it today, give him 50M. If you want it tomorrow, give him 10M. He was very damn sure, and he has explained this. This sentence makes the things very clear. that if you are damn sure about the remedy and patient susceptibility is good enough, you can go very high and which will act very fast. So concept should be very clear, then you can think about such potencies and you can use it with a confidence for such potencies. So this thing which he tried to explain over there, and then he turns towards the next part of choosing the potency. Now, is there any teaching which will help us to choose the best potency for a given case? There is little teaching but many opinions. Practitioners who publicly boast of their liberality on this subject will too often be found on more intimate acquaintances to practice an obstinate exclusivism in the use of some particular potency, generally a very low or a very high one, and to harshly criticize those who differ with them. This is unfortunate because such practitioners undoubtedly deprive themselves and their patients of many agents of cure which are easily within their reach. So he explains over there, there are many practitioners who either with the fashion or with their specific fixed ideas use very specific potency. They give very specifically 30 only and they consider 30 is the best potency. There are certain who used to use only CM, and he explains over there because of this method, you cannot give what the result the patient can actually expecting. If you want to produce such type of result, then you, according to the case, according to the situation, you have to select the potency. One might require 6, one might require 30, another might require 200, someone might require 50 m, another might require cm. It varies from individual to individual. So you should not be rigid regarding the concept of potency or choosing the potency. Then he says further, a series of potencies has been compared to the gamut in music. A skillful artist may indeed construct harmony with various vibrations of the same chord, but what a more beautiful what a more beautiful and perfect harmony might be constructed by proper combination of all sounds that can be elicited from his instrument. So this is Guns's sentence. It is like that. You have, you know the very specific sounds which can be produced with the instrument, but you are not artist. You are only a person who is on the phase of learning those harmonies, and then when you tries to utilize that specific instrument, you used to produce certain sound, but the harmony which is played by an artist makes the difference. It looks beautiful, it looks very good tune to your ears, and you become happy with that harmony. It same is true when your potency matches. Your remedy is perfect, but your potency doesn't match, then it never used to produce a result. And that's why it is so much needed to reach to the right potency. In general, it may be stated that any curable disease may be cured by any potency when the indicated remedy is administered, but that the cure may be much accelerated by selecting potency or dose appropriate to the individual case. So you can get the cure, but if patient requires the 10 m and you are giving only 30 or 200, then it takes long time. This is what happens. Patient might get cured, but it takes long time. Why? Because you have not choose right potency. And for that purpose, it is so much necessary to come to a conclusion of very right potencies. And this is what he is trying to explain over there. And then he explains 5 considerations influence in the choice of the dose. He has explained there are 5 points which one must think before coming to the right potency. The first point which he mentions, the susceptibility of the patient. Make it fix in your mind. These are 5 points which one must consider before coming to the conclusion of potency. First is susceptibility. Second is the seat of disease. where exactly the disease is situated, whether it is more superficial at the external most layer, whether it is in the muscular level, whether it is more inner bony level, or it is more at the metaphysical level. So the seat of the disease. Number three, the nature and intensity of the disease. So what type of disease the patient is suffering from, whether it is acute or chronic. What is the intensity, how intense the disease is, whether it is patient is telling it lightly or whether he is intensely telling you, on the basis of which you judge what susceptibility is there. The fourth point which he explains, the stage and duration of disease, that is also important. So it is functional, whether it is pathological, whether it is advanced pathological, whether it is cancerous metastasis. You have to think about it while choosing the potency. You should not go or be rigid regarding the fixed potency. Here you have to think why you are giving such and such potency. So stage and duration of disease, that matters a lot. If it is of recent origin, all of a sudden it has developed. So it means the patient is highly susceptible because of which he has carried. And then you can think accordingly. But if patient comes to you of having asthma of 10 years duration, then you have to think twice before prescribing the potency. You should not go very high in such types of patients. So you have to think. So stage and duration of the disease. And last point, which he explains, the previous treatment of the disease. What previous treatment of the disease patient has consumed. Most important point of it, of this is the what treatment the patient has consumed. Because those medicines can affect the human life. I have seen yesterday, day before yesterday, I have one patient of a cancer. It is a leukemia, 5 years child suffering from lymphoblastic leukemia, ALL, acute. And child was in a dull state. He was not having strength. And he was brought to me. And hopeless case, in fact. It was told by their doctors, oncologist, that now there are only 4 days are remaining with your child. We cannot do anything. Please don't bring this child to us again. That was the last sentence which they have told. And then this patient was brought to me right from Nasik. And I took his case, whole case, and I have repertoried, judging his susceptibility, that he was in a dull state. He was not having the strength. He was not having that much of capacity to react immediately. He was in a continuous nagging phase and never had a strength. He says that just carry me. That was the thing. Here you have to think that his disease is already advanced. It was a relapse of ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So stage was tremendously advanced. He was on the verge of losing his susceptibility completely, and it was declared by them. So what potency you will going to say? Here you have to think about low potency. Remedy was carcinosin for that case. When I repertorized, it was carcinosin. So carcinosin, you cannot go for high 1M. Here you have to start with low. So I started with on 30. Today there was a call from his mother, and she was quite happy because he started eating, he started playing. It is a matter of choosing a very correct remedy in right potency. It worked. So the child who was there on bed doesn't have a strength, playing only with mobile and sitting over there, not even walking few footsteps, started playing within span of 2 days, 3 days only. It means that if you choose a very right potency of the right remedy, it works instantaneously. And that's why all those points one has to learn. So those 5 points he has explained in thorough in further part. Tomorrow we'll continue with that. Second important thing which I want to tell you, that for this week it is not possible to conduct the Materia Medica session at 8:15. So instead of that, from tomorrow, not today, but from tomorrow, immediately after the philosophy lecture, I will conduct the Materia Medica session. So it will be between 6:15 to 6:45, the Materia Medica session for a week. So there will be continuously 2 lectures, first followed by a Materia Medica lecture session immediately for this week only, up to the Saturday, up to the Friday. So today there will be no session of the Materia Medica, but tomorrow keep this in your mind. And for this only 4-5 days, we will make it at 6:15. So regular Organon philosophy lecture will be at 5:45 and Materia Medica will be at 6:15. So that's all for today. Thank you being there, and we'll meet tomorrow at 5:45.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.